lives one day at a time. Kimmy Kim and Elations Radio. They're here to get your day going fine. Kimmy Kim and Elations Radio. Kimmy Kim and Elations Radio. Kimmy Kim and Elations Radio.
And here's your host, Miss Kim Robinson.
Yes, Lord. We need you. Hallelujah. They hating, they pouring, they talking. I won't fall back, I'm still walking. My head to the sky, and I promise gonna keep on. Hallelujah. They hating, they pouring, they talking. And I won't fall back, I'm still walking. My head to the sky, and I promise gonna keep on. Hallelujah. Sitting in the pew, searching for my purpose. The preacher on fire got me focused in the service. He said, blessed is the man, I'm pressing through the fire. It seems I'm falling back, but I know I'm going higher. Favor don't look like favor, look like a dead end. You preaching today, sir, please say it again. Faith is what we hope for, speaking to existence. At times I feel lost, feels like I'm out of position. Then my mind start racing, thinking about David and how he had one stone that dropped him to the pavement. Now I hear the word, how Joseph was abandoned, and even though he fell, his faith was still standing. I'ma toughen up and walk the miles that he chose. You can throw me in the gym, but your mouth will be closed. The word on fire, the anointing, I can hear it. I'm sitting in this role and I can feel his Holy Spirit. They hate and they pour and they talking, and I won't fall back, I'm still walking. My head to the sky, and I promise gonna keep on. They hate and they pour and they talking, and I won't fall back, I'm still walking. My head to the sky, and I promise gonna keep on. The devil won't get me, cause the Lord already saved me. I'm clutching on this grace, embracing all that he gave me. At times I get weary, the storm means I'm tested. I asked to be purged just in case I got infected. Before I came in, I was listening to church. He said we got the victory, I'm healed from the hurt. I started feeling good, but will it last throughout the week? Pastor, I'm being real, it's the truth that I speak. I'm called to be chosen, I'm called to be great, but I'm wrapped up in this flesh and my faith begins to break. Then I remember about James 1:12 and how we serve the one and his name never fails. I hear the altar call, yeah, he pulling on my soul. I'm feeling recharged, I was back on my pose. Was weak for a minute, but greater is he. Now I'm walking in my purpose and his favor on me. They hate and they pour and they talking, and I won't fall back, I'm still walking. My head to the sky, and I promise gonna keep on. They hate and they pour and they talking, and I won't fall back, I'm still walking. My head to the sky, and I promise gonna keep on. They hate and they pour and they talking, and I won't fall back, I'm still walking. My head to the sky, and I promise gonna keep on. They hate and they pour and they talking, and I won't fall back, I'm still walking. My head to the sky, and I promise gonna keep on.
Relentless Pursuit. Welcome back to Relentless Pursuit with Minister Sedric. It's been a wonderful week. God has done nothing but bless. So I want to welcome everybody back again. Y'all know I was up this week and I found something and I started chasing it and I embraced that dream, right? So that's what I'm doing right now. But before we get started on our show, I want to say, give a shout out to Sister Kim. Thank you so much for always being on point. for always being there, for always keeping me in line. But I want to give thanks to God just for giving me one more day. So, Lord, thank you for bringing us back for another day. Well, man, still a whole lot going on in this country. I always used to tell people I've been around the world at least once, and I found America to be the best country to live. All the alternatives just didn't quite live up to the hype for me. But, man, a lot going on. So with that being said, I found a little scripture that I was checking out earlier today, and it's Proverbs chapter 10, verse 29. Something really simple, and I think it's something that we can that'll get us started for the day. And it simply reads, "The way of the Lord is a refuge for the righteous, but it is the ruin of those who do evil." Yeah. You know, I read a story once, and it was about the early explorers. And basically what it said that the early explorers found out rather quickly that the currents of the ocean could either guide them to their destination if they followed them correctly, or, check it out, it could divert them from their journey, right, if they didn't respect the currents or if they didn't know how to navigate the currents. And that's one of the things I wanted to kind of talk about today, because they found, the early settlers, or shall I say explorers, they found that the currents could either have a positive effect or a negative effect on the ships that they were sailing on, right? And it all depends on the knowledge of the crew and how they responded to the currents. You know, it got me to thinking about God's wisdom. You see, in so many ways, God's wisdom is like the current. It'll either carry us where we need to go, right? So in that case, it's our refuge, right? So that means it keeps us safe and it brings us to our desired destination, right? But that's only going to happen if we follow it. And then we can benefit from God's wisdom. But that only applies to those of us who are willing to line up and follow it, right? We set our course according to God's wisdom and to God's teachings. So otherwise, you know what? We don't get the benefit of those currents. You know, a lot of times when we read in history, we find that there are millions and millions have tried to follow the path that goes against God's wisdom, right? We read in the Bible, we find it. We get out here today, we look. We got people following false religions, right? They're following this philosophy that is debunked, right? They're following personal ambition, or they got a political agenda, right? You know, and some people, they got this wonderful economic strategy, but none of that serves God, right? Or none of that does us any good without us serving God. And so when we do these things, we fail ourselves. God doesn't fail us. We fail ourselves because we refuse to do what God has called for us to do. And we find that our lives are miserable. You know, we look back at our lives someday and we find that, wow, this looks so promising. This job I had that I was making all this money on, it looked so promising, but it proved to be futile. Why? Because it was contradictory to God's word. It caused us to live contradictory to the teachings of God. One thing I want to leave y'all with on that is, if you're doing anything out here today that's contradictory to the word of God, then you need to stop. And we all need to stop, because if it contradicts God's eternal wisdom, then what are we doing it for? I know me personally, I want to live in eternity with God. I don't want to spend the time that I have here on earth not worshiping God, not honoring the gifts that God has given me, not following God's strategy. So I just need to throw this out and ask a couple of very small questions. You know, if you've got a personal agenda, if you got plans for your future, if you got all these strategies that make you comfortable and that make you feel good about yourself, just a little warning. If it's not following Christ, then it's not going to happen. It's not going to work for you. It's not going to get you into the kingdom of heaven. And I want to encourage somebody today that learn to follow the currents of God's wisdom, so that instead of living a life of ruin, that we will find refuge. No matter how tough times are, we'll find refuge in God's word and in God's wisdom. So that's my quick little lesson for today. And I just want to, I hope and pray that it benefits somebody today. I tried to keep it short and sweet because sometimes I can get really confusing. But, Father, thank you for allowing us to have another day. Amen. So here we go. So this week I've been talking to some people, talking to some friends, and, you know, life is what it is, and it's been wonderful for us. But this has been a great week. It's been a great week, so I'm going to go ahead and welcome in my two partners in crime that's going to be with us this week. That's Terry and then also Jason. You guys on with us right now?
Yes, sir. How you doing?
It's a beautiful day, man. I'm feeling good. How about yourself?
Doing great.
You sound kind of tired. Brother Jason,
I'm good.
On with us right now? Yeah, you know how it goes, because I'm telling you, I'm having a great day. I've been thinking, check this out, I've really been thinking, and I know how we've been really kind of covering what's going on in our, in politics a little bit, but also what's going on with the Black Lives Movement, things that are going on, our social activism, as I like to call it. And I was talking with one of the brothers, and you know what? He said to me, we have a shared experience. I said, a shared experience? What are you talking about? You know, we from everything about us is different. And so right. And so I want to talk a little bit about that today because, man, I just trying to understand because, I've been doing so much reading. And it's just trying to understand because, like my brother, I have two brothers that I grew up with, and we lived in the same household. You know, we got some of the same things, and our experience was different. Our experience in life was different. Like, I was treated a little bit differently than they were. But at the same time, we went to the same stores. You know, we walked in the store together. We went to school together. We hung out with some of the same, we hung out in the same neighborhood, but our life experience was a little bit different. So as I was talking to Brother Jason, he said, hey, you know, we got some shared experiences. I didn't think we did. So we wanted to talk a little bit about a shared experience today. And, just kind of just look at it and see because, man, sometimes with the way things are going in our society right now, sometimes I can relate to some experiences, and there are some experiences I'm not good at relating to, but I never want to discount another man's experience. I originally thought that he was going to say, well, with different minorities in the country. I don't even like to use the word minorities. The different races that we have here in America, our shared experience. And I was going to say, well, I was telling him, well, man, we gotta do a lot of work on that one because I got to get a bunch of different people on. But he wanted to talk about, as black men in America, our shared experience. So, and I thought, wow, what a profound topic, because when I look at racism through my lens, it doesn't allow me to do certain things. Like, I feel guilty if I do certain things. And like when I think about the police, you know, my experience with police has been both positive and negative. Like, I have I either feel one way or another. I have no mixed emotions, I guess you would say, because I've never really been that close to police officers. So, like, one of my experiences with police is a very simple one. When I lived in Dallas in the 90s, man, I used to hate getting pulled over by the police because it was always some bad news, man. It was just like, man, for real. And I got to a point where I kind of resented not the uniform, but there was a certain trait that I developed. And I hate to say it, I don't really want to say it was fear, but I think it was, I guess when I think about it, it was fear. I became fearful of police pulling me over. I never thought about being killed. I never thought about being mistreated because they were always respectful. But my biggest concern was I'm going to find out that I got a ticket that I know I didn't get, right? My biggest fear was finding out, well, you may have to go down to the jailhouse and pay this fine, or or get out on pretrial release or wait till in the morning to see the judge. And my concern was not that they were going to kill me or hurt me. My concern was, man, y'all going to tow my car for real for this? Now I got to pay $200 to get my car. That was my thing. So, so did you have any kind of concerns like that? Can you relate to those kind of issues with police officers, Terry?
Well, my thing was I grew up with a lot of people whose parents were like police officers. And so I played football with them, baseball with them. So it was like I really didn't see them like police officers per se, as I did more or less like friends, and so it was really unique. But my piece with police officers really didn't start to deteriorate until I got into my adulthood.
Really?
Until I got into my adulthood, yeah. That's when I started, getting stopped by police for no reason. Like I think I mentioned it to you before. I had gotten stopped by police leaving a person's house, leaving a friend's house, and they pulled me over because they thought I looked like someone that they were looking for that night, and they detained me for over an hour, and then one day I was then also another, and it was like it was crazy. It was just initially it was just one police officer. The next thing I know, one car pulled up beside, another one pulled up in front, and they told me to put my hand. All the lights were shining. They told me to put my hands on the steering wheel, and at that point, that's when I became afraid. I became afraid, and then I became afraid, going through the mall, getting followed by
hold on a
police.
second. Before we run into that, so like you were leaving a friend's house and you were headed home, I presume. What time of night was it, or what time of day was it? It was at night, and it was around, I'd say around 8:30, 9 o'clock. 8:30, 9 o'clock. So you were on your way home. So how did that make you feel? The one officer pulling you over, I suppose he came up to your car and asked you for your ID, or did he sit and wait? How did you They came up, and they actually had the lights flashing, shining on my car, told me to put my hands on the steering wheel. They came up, and I was literally petrified. I didn't know to let my window down or not, if it was safe. And then he came to the window, tapped on the window, and he told me to let my window down. Let my window down, and I put my hand right back on the steering wheel, and he told me to, pull out, I need your license and registration. And I was like, why did I get stopped? And he was like, we're looking for, a particular person or something like that. Because it happened so long ago. And I was like, okay. And so I said, my wallet is in my armrest. And I said, I don't have, and stuff like that. And he was like, do you have a weapon? No, I don't have a weapon, sir. And I said, but my wallet's in my armrest. But it was just so regimented and so, I was like, oh my God, I got stopped. And and I'm sitting there like, I didn't do anything. I was just driving like I'm driving black, So you're driving. So you're driving. It's 8 o'clock at night. One police car pulls you over. This officer gets out. He comes up. He has an interaction with you. When did the other cars show up?
They showed up, like after I gave him my license and registration. That's when the one car pulled in front, another car pulled onto the side of me. And I was like, okay, this is crazy. I haven't done anything, and it was really, and it got to the point because I was like, okay, it's taking a long time, because I was like, okay, I haven't done anything. He didn't stop me because I ran a stoplight or something. It doesn't make any sense. And it just didn't make any sense why all these police officers are here for one black man.
Driving while black, that used to be kind of a big thing. But it's funny that you say that, because my experience in that, like my brother Fred and we were driving one time, and I lived in North Dallas, and where I lived right by the Galleria Mall, so I lived in kind of a middle class, upper class kind of upper middle class neighborhood, right? And we was about to get on Dallas Tollway, and we get pulled over. My brother's like, I was like, man, we good. Don't worry about it, man. Don't worry about it. So I'm talking to the police officer. He comes up, and I'm like, yes, how may I help you? Because I never say yes, sir, no, sir. I'm sorry. I feel less than when I say that. So I have to say yes, no. How may I help you? He said, well, good evening. And I said, And he said, well, can I see your insurance and driver's license? I said, yeah, cool. He said, well, where you guys headed tonight? I said, oh, this is my brother. Now we about to just go out, hang out, have a good time, come back to my house. That's it. And other than that, it wasn't his business. That's what I felt obliged to say. But anyway, make a long story short, then he goes back to his car. He comes back, and he's pretty cool with me. He says, you got a warrant? I said, well, nah. He looks at me. He says, yeah. And I'm looking at him like, man, what we about to do with this? And, he said, well, let me double check it. And so he's asking me all these questions. Well, luckily, I have my military ID on me, right? And I tell him, I said, man, look, I don't know how old that warrant is, but I haven't been here for quite some time. I have my home. I'm getting out of the military, but I don't live here. My home record is here. But, man, I can show you my orders where I just got orders to go on leave. I'm only going to be here for like a week or two. Well, anyway, he proceeded to tell me about these warrants. Turns out to be, he said he couldn't find out what they were for. So anyway, he asked me to get out of my car. I get out. Then about this time, another car pulls up, and I guess it's his sergeant or whatever. And, man, they were going to take me to jail. And I'm like, man, dude, I'm telling you, I couldn't have done this. I haven't been here for at least 6 months, right? And turns out they didn't, but he gave me some information, told me what I needed to do to get these tickets taken care of, or these warrants, because they had turned into what they call bench warrants. He said that I think they called it FTA. But anyway, make a long story short, he was a pretty nice cop, and he told me how to get this taken care of without even arresting me. And that kind of drives my next point for you, where you said in Dallas, I got to a point when that happened like 3 or 4 times. They always took care of me. But then there came a time when they didn't take care of me. So you mentioned you were in the mall. How did you, being in the mall, what was your experience about being in the mall? Sherry, you still there?
I'm here. I'm sorry. I had on mute. Being a black man in the mall, it's uncomfortable, even though sometimes, because you know why you're there, but as soon as you walk into Macy's, store security breaks out, and you can see them, and you can see them
exactly
following you around, right? And I'm sitting there like, okay, it just happened like the other day. You and I were at a sporting goods store. We're both wearing sporting good material, both wearing shorts and tennis shoes, and like we had just finished working out or something, and the store security guy comes over because you were looking for somebody to get a price, and the first thing he said was, "I've arrested many people." That was pretty crazy to me,
Yeah.
I'm wondering, do you do that? It was off the wall, and I'm like, do you do that with other customers in here, or is it just black customers? Because we were the only 2 black males that I saw in there at that point, at that point in time in that area, and I'm like, what are we going to steal? Some weights?
It was about 300 pounds worth, right?
Right. And so I'm sitting here. So I was thinking, this is that was just unusual for him to do that. But the only reason why he left us alone. Well, I believe he left us alone was because of what you started, sparking up a conversation and found out he was a veteran as well. And once he realized that, y'all had something in common, so I don't need to be over here.
Right, yeah, that common ground thing.
And what would that have been like if you hadn't have been there, or if you didn't have something in common with him to share?
Right, because, and even in those moments leading up to that, it was funny because he was the guy who was standing at the door as if he was a greeter. And so he was standing at the door as if he were a greeter. And, I remember us talking. We were looking for somebody to get a price check. But But for me, though, I will tell you, man, living life like that, like the way we have to live life, man, it makes me angry. It makes me feel angry. And, I don't know. I understand how to navigate it, but I don't know when that next person who steps to me, if they're going to be angry and they disrespect me, am I going to be able to take that? You know, like there's a thing inside of me that says enough is enough, and as a black man in America, I see it's already hard, and it's hard enough because we have to fight. We have to fight this thing within ourselves to become better people, right? And I just don't know when and if I'm going to be able to just stomach this one more time. And sometimes I have to struggle with the fact that I know that the whole world is not against us. But, man, it's been against us for so many generations, and we've been having to be taught how to navigate these systems. Man, I don't know. One day I'm going to explode. Some days, I'm going to be honest, when I have to deal with a bunch of people who are of the opposite race, especially when they're the opposite sex, dude, I'm so tired. I'm so exhausted mentally from having to do these gymnastics that it's just like, are you kidding me? And I have to be careful of the things I say, you know, the things I do. So it's crazy. Go ahead, man. Go ahead.
But just think about it. We have been raised. Well, I can speak for myself. I was raised in an area called Berrytown, which is the largest black community out in the east end of Jefferson County. But we went to all white schools. We went to, all white elementary school, all white middle school, majority white high school, and in our mind, so for us to get along, we had to learn them. We had to learn. It's almost like we had, to survive, and it's like, and it shouldn't be that way. It should be. Always, it should be equal. It shouldn't be where we have to learn them to survive, or we got to learn to, to articulate our words like them, or whatever to survive. Yeah. It shouldn't be that way. It should be one where we should be able to wake up. We shouldn't have to tell our kids, look, if you go to a store, don't touch nothing. You don't want nothing. Don't do nothing. Don't even look at it. We shouldn't have to tell our kids these things. Or if you're going to the mall, you go with your friends. Y'all don't go y'all don't go to certain stores. Y'all don't do certain things. It shouldn't be that way.
No, it shouldn't. What's funny? Go ahead, Jason.
I totally agree with you, and I think as we talked about these shared experiences, it's interesting that I hear Terry's story and I hear Cedric, I hear your story, and then I've got similar stories where I'm just driving. That was at one point in time I was working overnight, the overnight shift, and of course I was in a warehouse and it was right during the winter, so it was kind of cold. So I always wore a hoodie. But this wasn't a black hoodie. This was a neon yellow hoodie that I would wear, and like my orange vest. I will tell you, I worked that job for about 4 months. I got stopped at least twice a week coming home, and it was always, "Oh, hey, how you doing?" No, kid you not. And it was one of those situations that, like you said, I didn't worry about it, but just to reflect on it, I tell you, every time that light pulled over, I did get that good, that thing I'm feeling. And I'll tell you this. I don't have tickets. I know I'm going to get tickets for running red lights, but I always get that sense, kind of like what you had, Terry, where things are just going to be a little bit more tense in that encounter. Where I just can't say, "Hey, officer, how you doing?" "Oh, I'm fine." "I need license and registration." "Okay, go on by your business." I get like 8 or 9 different questions. "Where you going? Where you be? Your license, your address doesn't match where you say you're going." And I'm like, man, seriously, dude, we got to go through all this.
Country?
So what's interesting to me, and I think the point that me and you were talking about earlier, Cedric, was when we talk about a shared experience, how many black people, not just black men, but black women, but black people in general, have an experience. And the crazy thing, it transcends everything, geographics, socioeconomics. It doesn't matter if you're rich, if you're poor, if you're in the South, in the North. We all have a shared experience, and that just, I don't know, that just it hits me a lot harder when I think about that.
Absolutely, and you know what's really interesting. A thought I had just a second while you were talking. This thought I had was like you were talking about the times you got stopped at least twice a week. You know what's funny is I worked the overnight shift once, and man, I never got stopped. Matter of fact, my car broke down one time, and I was hoping the police stopped. They drove past me. Man, have you ever had that feeling that you're in distress? The one people that might want to stop just to check you out, and it's late at night, will be the police. But they'll never stop you when you need them. They always stop you when you're in a hurry to get somewhere. But that's my little joke there. But my experience has been like that with police, and it was like that with police. Probably I was transitioning out of military in 98. So probably from 98, I left Texas in 2003. I came to Kentucky in late 2004. And I tell you what, I will say this. I have a totally different experience with police in different states than I do in Texas, in Dallas-Fort Worth. I'm going to say it like that. When I'm not in Dallas-Fort Worth, I just have a totally different experience. But yet and still, when I'm pulled over, there's a level of anxiety because I don't know what to expect. And for me, I find that I spend most of the time trying to gauge, is this going to be one of those kind of traffic stops, or is it going to be one of these good traffic stops? You know, and I think that's not fair. I mean, I think it's not fair to us as a people. And here's the big deal, that when I talk to my friends who are not black, when I talk to my friends who are white, people I know that are white, I will tell you they have no clue what I'm talking about. They don't understand. Well, why do you feel anxious? Well, why do you feel this way? I have some Latino friends. They understand very well, but most of my white friends, even some of the Asian people they have no freaking idea about why I feel anxious. Has that ever happened to you guys? And if so, how does that make you feel?
See, I get a different, I'll get the initial, well, what I typically get with people is like, well, if you didn't do anything, there's no reason to be anxious about. And I'll tell you that kind of frustrates me and it irritates me because I think for people to say that is just totally dismissive. And I look at them like, you know me. It's like I'm probably the most unassuming person you've ever met. So for you to even say something like that, typically the relationship doesn't go any further, too much longer after I hear a statement like that. Because if you get to know me, you're like, I'm the most unassuming person, and it's like, yeah, but it is just an experience, and I think this is one of the things that we're coming across is that people are like, I don't think people understand how frustrating it is, like, when you question my experience because you just doesn't make sense to you. Yeah. And I'm like, and it won't make sense to you, and it never will make sense to you until your skin turns brown. When your skin turns brown, it'll make a lot of sense to you at that point.
Oh my
God! Until then, yep.
Jason, you said it, man. I mean, it's like when people dismiss our experiences. I have somebody that I work with, and he he does that a lot. And it just really frustrates me. It's like you have no clue. I mean, but it was little things like even like he does like we went into the West End to put out some things the other day, put out some signs and whatnot. And he was talking. He was like, "Man, I bet you, I mean, if my car broke down over here, man, I'd be scared to death. And all this, I mean, but he would just go on and on and on and on about it. I said, Jim, honestly, if your car broke down, there will probably be people that come over and help you. You know, I said, don't guesstimate or guess or feel like, you know, just because you are in a majority black neighborhood that you're going to get jumped and you're going to get, but, and he's like, you wouldn't feel that way? I'm like, no, Jim, my car broke down in Portland. My car's, you know, but my experience, you know what I'm saying? It's been, you know, I don't know, but just don't dismiss experiences. I guess those, Jason, you hit that right on the head, though, with me, though.
You know, what's funny is I remember what's funny is this right here. Having friends like that, I had a discussion with a gentleman the other day, and he was telling me his life experience where he was the bigger kid on the playground. And he said every day when he would go out on the playground, there was 14 other kids, and they would all circle him, and somebody would run up behind him and push him or hit him. And when he turned to look to see who it was, somebody from another angle would hit him, and like he was constantly getting picked on. He said he would get dragged to the principal's office by the teacher, by his ear or by his arm is the way he put it. And he would spend all his time trying to explain to the principal he wasn't at fault. He didn't start that. And so we were sharing experiences. And so I said to him, well, welcome to my America. And he was like, no, you don't understand. You don't understand. I listened to him, and I kept saying, welcome to my America. And he was like, well, why do you keep saying that? I said, because every day is a black man in America. That's how we wake up. Things happen to us, and we get blamed for it a lot of times, and we're not at fault. And then so we continue to talk. And I said, so, and the way we got on this subject, just to give you a little background, is we were talking about Black Lives Matter and all the things that are going on right now. And he was white. And so I said to him, you can relate to the black experience. You just choose not to. And he said, well, what do you mean by that? Well, I don't think that. Well, what do you mean? I said, look at all the things that have happened to you. And he gave me like 3 or 4 different scenarios of things that happened to him growing up where he was the victim, but he was treated as if he was the aggressor. I said, well, you can relate, but you choose not to. And that's the thing that bothers me. So that experience you have with those friends, Jason, that you say you're no longer friends with, you know, I have experiences like that with some friends who aren't black. I don't stop being their friend for that reason. But I tell you what, it does make me think. It makes me think because I remember my mom saying something to this effect when I was growing up, and she was explaining it. I want to say she was explaining it to a police officer because my brothers and I, we used to get in trouble. But she basically said that she was tired of living in a constant state of anxiety and fear because she is the mother of 3 black sons. And I didn't understand all of that. And she says, I live with the same fear and anxiety because my husband is black. And she says that, as I remember it, I don't have it 100% correct, but she said that the reason she lived that way is because so many men of color at that time were being incarcerated, accused of crimes that they didn't commit. And this is in the 80s. And, man, that rings in my head all the time. And my mom would always say, for those of us who weren't born back, I was born in 1970, so if y'all didn't come along until well after, we had telephones in our houses. We didn't have them on our hips. We didn't even have pages. So we had to stop at the payphone when we were going to be out late to call my mom, who was at work. She worked the night shift. Or we would call home if it were after 10 o'clock because my dad would be home. And it was a constant thing. If I was going to be out to the wee hours of the morning, I had to call every couple of hours to let them know. And you know, that was my parents' way of keeping tabs on me so that if something should happen, they would at least know where I was, the last place I was, so that they could, you know, if they needed to try to find me, they could start at that point. So we used payphones, and I always had to tell my mom, exactly where the payphone was. I had to give her the address. If I had to leave her a voicemail at work, I had to leave the address of the payphone. It was crazy. Either you guys have experiences like that at all from when you were growing up? Terry,
no,
Jason?
I did. I'm sorry, I didn't. I didn't have too many experiences like that. I mean, as far as having to let my mom, know where my parents know where I per se was. And I guess that's that different experience that I've had from you all, in a sense, because, it was like I lived in this little area. It was kind of a self-contained community kind of thing. And so when we ventured out, it was almost like everybody knew who we were in the first place. So it wasn't like I had to let anybody know where I was going, who I was with. Like I said, my experiences really didn't start happening until I became an adult, when I went off to college, when I went to Ohio. And honestly, that's when I started to see the rebel, the Confederate flags, was when I went to Ohio. When I started experiencing racism was in Ohio. And like I said, when I got in my adulthood, so I didn't get a chance to, per se.
Don't run too far. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Don't run too far. Jason, did you have any of those experiences where you had to check in at all?
So I'll tell you, not so much with the check in, but I would tell you this. My mom, it was interesting. She just recently told me here in my adult life that, because I'm about the same age as you, Cedric. I grew up in that time, and the biggest statistic I remember growing up was what they say 85% of black males between 18 and 30, or before the age of 18, were either in jail or dead. And that was a statistic that my mom drilled in my head, and she told me later on in life, every time I left the house, she was afraid. Now, she didn't make me call or anything because she didn't want me to live in that state of fear, but she made it known that she had that state of fear, and whether I make you check in or I don't, the fact that we as people can't even exist without living in fear for our own children. Now, I have children, right? And yes, they're mixed, but there's still that level of fear when I have to have a talk with my son. And, so we may not all have that parent that's going to be like, hey, you need to check in. But I think we all have that experience with that adult in our life who worries about us for no other reason other than you're a black man in America.
Yeah, but how did that affect your relationship with your mom growing up and her needing to know where you were? Or in Terry's case, not needing to know where you were. How did that affect your relationship at all? What impact did it have on your relationship?
So I would tell you, like I said, growing up, she really didn't require that level of checking in. But when I found out later on in life that every time I left the house, she said she was so afraid, and it just when I heard that, it just, I love her. I love her so much because she didn't, send me out there worried and concerned. Now, she taught me the right thing to do. She taught me respect. She taught me, like, hey, when you're dealing with people in authority, you respect them. If they're wrong, you don't address them there. Bring it home, and we'll take care of it, right? So I think, it really shocked me when she told me she was scared. And I'm like, because my mom is one of those people who, on the outside, she doesn't look like she gets caught up in all this, hey, I'm a black man, I got a crutch. She always taught me, it's like, dude, it's just, that's your reality, and she was honest with me. She's like, your life ain't going to be fair. You're black in America, it ain't going to be fair. Here's the deal. You now know it, get over it, work past it. But when she told me that, it just really reinforced the fact that, man, that even her, a woman who doesn't typically live with fear and anxiety, had that anxiousness, just because she recognized the situation that we're dealing with, and I don't know, it just, to your point, makes you angry.
Yeah, it can, man, I tell you, it can do some of those things. But I'm curious, Terry, how did it affect with your parents? The fact that they knew who you would hang around with, so you never had to tell them if you were going to take off at I don't know, 10 o'clock at night, go hang out with your buddies. I mean, how did that affect your relationship? Or did it have an impact on your relationship at all?
No, it really didn't have an impact on our relationship that I could see. I just know, like I said, I know when I went to college, that's when things changed. I was getting calls every Friday before, from my parents, and they were talking to me about, okay, you're on your own, know that you're black and you in Ohio. So you need to be careful, where you go, who you talk to, if you find yourself in a place that, you always keep a quarter in your pocket, back then, everybody was using payphones to make a call, let us know what's going on. I mean, so I didn't really get a lot of that until I went away, and then I began to be like, okay, become a little bit more self-conscious of where I am, who I'm with, those types of things.
So
and Terry, you know what?
Yeah.
Oh, just to kind of piggyback, Terry, I think your parents were like my mom, and in the sense that they didn't want us to worry because they felt like they taught us right, they gave us the right thing. But when they, I think if you really talk to your parents, they probably had that anxiety their whole time, but didn't really share it because now that you're away from home, it's like, I don't know what I really need to make sure you know what the deal is. But your parents sound like my mom, that I don't want you to worry, but now that you're out in the real world, let me make sure you understand what the reality is.
Right.
So how did that affect how the two of you raised your kids?
Oh, wow. Well, pretty most part, that's what we're running into.
Come on with it.
With Taylor, I mean, I raised her pretty much the way my parents raised me, pretty much sheltered. She literally.
So define
she went to a.
What do you mean?
I mean, for the most, she lived in a suburban neighborhood, mixed with various other races and things of this nature. So it wasn't like. It was like a rainbow coalition out here, so it wasn't like she was all by herself. The one time we did experience some, problems was when we sent her to a private school, and we after that year was over with, we took her out of there because one of the things she said is, "Daddy, I don't see people that look like me," and then she was developing. She was biting her nails and doing a whole bunch of other stuff, So we wanted her to be around kids that look like her.
So you grew up in a neighborhood that was pretty much all black, though, am I right?
Yeah, correct.
And so you were raised daughter at that point in a Rainbow Coalition neighborhood, but she went to a private school where there weren't many black kids.
Yeah, for first year school.
Why would you and your wife put her in a school where there weren't, let's say, many black kids? Was it the private school, the whole stigma behind the better education, or I said stigma?
Well, we wanted to try something a little different, because she went to our first daycare was all black and this, that, and the other. But we wanted to, after she finished that daycare, we wanted her to have a different type of an experience, so we thought, but it wasn't what we thought it was going to be, and so hence, like I said, 1 year she was only there for just that one time, and we were like, we're out of here, and because again, the very thing that she said was, there's no kid at this school that looks like me, and your kids,
so
right.
So wait a minute, it took you. At this time, she's 6 years old or 5?
Around 5 or 6.
That's not going to tell you, Mom, Dad, I don't know if y'all know this, but
I'm the only black one here. I'm the only black one here.
So I'll tell you, it's interesting.
Go ahead, Jason.
I was going to tell you, like, I think I understand your experiment, Terry, because I was raised not to see color. My mom tried her hardest to raise me not to see color, right? And just like, you're just a man. Yeah, you're black, but you just don't let that define you. And I will tell you the worst, probably the best experience I ever had, but one of the most horrible experience I ever had was when I went off to college. I went to college in Memphis, Tennessee. So if you don't know about Memphis, Memphis is predominantly black. However, the college I went to was a private one. The college I went to was a predominantly white college. In fact, only 11% of the student body was African American. So think about this. I'm in the middle of Memphis, which is, predominantly black, and I'm in this little bubble of just mostly white kids, and they were rich white kids. Let me tell you, my mom, in all her glory and all the great things she did, she screwed that one up because all they saw was color. And it was a rude awakening for me to walk in thinking, oh, I'm just Jason, and the way I was being treated, the way I was being looked at, the way I was being talked to and talked about.
So how were you treated?
It was. So
I want to cover each one of those.
So the way they treated me was they acted like I was a threat. I was walking around. I'm friendly. I'll talk to anybody. I'll go up and talk to people, and they'll get a little nervous at first because they're like, and I'm like, hey, what's up? Me being naive, being colorblind, I'm like, oh, well, maybe you're just not used to new people, talking to new people. But it just constantly happens, if I'm out.
You say colorblind? You say colorblind?
I say colorblind.
That's so funny to me because I had this discussion with somebody, and I don't believe none of us can ever be colorblind. How can you not see a black person? How can you not see a white person? How can you not see a Hispanic person?
Right.
How can you?
I'm telling you, the way I was raised to believe that people are people. And my mom, she really
I agree
tried
with that,
hard,
but
she tried hard to. Her biggest fear was, you see people who use their race and use their situation as a crutch, right? And that's one thing that she never wanted me to do was ever use my situation, the color of my skin, the fact that I got ADHD, the fact that I wear glasses. She didn't want to use anything in my life as a crutch. And I think in her mind, the best way to do that was to say, yes, you're black, but it's no big deal. So I wouldn't say I was colorblind, but it was one of those things that it's not a big deal.
Gotcha. You were raised not to judge things about your, just because of your race. And that's what I say. Like, my kids, it's never been a secret. You are black. You are African American. You are a Negro. Okay. Why we got to learn all three of those terms, I don't know, because we use three different terms in our community. But I was always taught on that. Yeah, we all have color. I mean, that's something that was kind of thrust out. It's easy for us to see we ain't the exact same color. So I don't think there's any problem with that. I think the problem is, like your mom didn't want you to see, for us as a people, let's not use it as a crutch. Let's not let it hold us back. But I've always been raised to be proud that I'm brown, that I'm a black man in America. I have always been raised to be proud of that. And so that's why I asked that question, Jason, because, man, my dad was a light-skinned guy. My brother Fred, rest his soul, he was so light he didn't even look like a black man half of the time, right? My mom was brown-skinned, and my other brothers, the rest of my family was pretty much brown, except on my dad's side. But we were raised to be proud of who we were. We were black, and you should be proud. And because you're black doesn't mean that you're handicapped. It just simply means you're black. It doesn't mean you're a good person, a bad person, a smart person, a dumb person. It didn't mean none of those things. But what it did mean is that you were created equal to everybody else, no matter what their race or their gender was. So anyway, that was my big deal. But Jason, you can go ahead and finish up what you were saying, man. I just wanted to throw that out there.
No, I'm pretty finished, but like I say, I think, even here recently, when I found out, you were there when we were talking about race being a social construct, and it was something that was invented. It's not something that's biological. It's not something that's biblical. I will tell you, even here recently in my life, I try to take the approach that, hey, it's a social construct. Let's just undo the construct. And you realize, root awakening is that, color is just there. And it's not a bad thing. It's not a good thing. It's just like anything else. It's neutral, but it's what people do with that.
Okay.
You know, it's what people do with that perception of that color is what's important.
That and the way your mom raised you, how has that influenced you raising your kids? Your kids are biracial, so how has that influenced that? Has that made what you think life easier for them or easier for you to raise them? How's that impacted that?
So with my children,
today?
with my children, I try to really truly be honest with them. I'm like, look, here's the deal. You know, y'all are mixed. You know, some people want to, you know, refer to you as, you know, as white with your mom or black with your dad. But at the end of the day, you are a person. But let's be real about it. People are sometimes going to see you for the color of your skin, and there's nothing you can do about it other than just say, hey, know that you're bigger and better than that. You're not just the color of your skin, you know.
Right.
And just so people want to see you that way, just because people want to paint you that way, doesn't mean that you have to paint yourself that way, you know. So for me, it was just more like I said, with my experience being blindsided, when I got to a place where color was a thing, you know, to pretty much protect my kids, protect my children from that rude awakening. You know, prepare them, tell them the truth about who they are. You know, just kind of tell them, like I said, like you are going to probably face at some point in time in your life, you're gonna face somebody who's not gonna see, you know, you as the beautiful person that you are. They're gonna see you for the color of your skin, and they're probably gonna judge you on it and mistreat you because of it. You know, but just know that you've got to rise above that. And you know, I kind of grew up like Terry, that you have to kind of get along to, you know, just don't say nothing, don't make noise. Yeah. Go along to get along. Thank you. But I just told him, like, you don't have to do that anymore. You never heard that expression?
Yeah,
like,
I've heard.
You know things are wrong.
Do that.
Yeah, you know things are wrong, or things don't make you feel good, but they're not wrong, right? They don't make you feel good, and when I say they're not wrong, I'm not saying they're not wrong, but basically the majority of the people would not say they're wrong.
Right. No, I guess what I was saying is when you say you were taught to go along to get along, give me like some sort of scenario where you had to just go along to get along.
Oh, the big one, like people see you and they see your hair and they make a comment. You know, they're like, "Oh man, your hair is cool. Let me touch it." Right?
Man,
you know, it used to be.
We're not gonna go along to get along on that. I got you. I'm a little man. I can't do that. No, that'll make me feel like a puppy. But you know that's the strangest thing. Like, can y'all think of some insults like that y'all have experienced?
Yes. When I used to work for a Christian agency, they told one of my coworkers, we're the only two black people in the building. They told her, you don't act like the rest of them.
Are you serious?
Yeah, they told Christy that because she was a lighter skinned black female with very good, you know, she had what they call good hair, and they said, you just don't
like straight and wavy, or
straight hair, and but she was 100% black female, and they told her that she does not act like the rest of them. You know, do black people tan? Can I touch your hair?
Yeah.
If can I? Little stuff like that. I mean, do you? I mean, it's almost like stupid. It gets to a point in the where it's almost like stupid stuff. We're not human. Do you go to the bathroom? Yes. You know, I remember that. I mean, I'm just throwing it out, but like when I was a kid, we went to stay. We were doing a baseball tournament up in Effingham, Illinois. This white family, we stayed with a white family, the only two black kids in this whole freaking tournament, national tournament. We both stayed with this white family, and they did not know what to do with us. They finally asked us, said, "What do you all like to eat?" The same thing that your kids like to eat. What do they like to eat? Hot dogs? Okay, that's fine with us. I mean, they just did not have no clue. We're just like your kids.
So, like, well, with all this, I mean, it sounds like y'all going through some things. But with all this stuff going on, y'all must have been terrified when y'all had children. Like, how do you teach your kids? How do you give your kids a childhood? You know, how did that influence the way that you allowed your kids to go out and play, make friends, go to school? Did it influence it at all, or were you just still kind of, you know, everything's great, you just went on your merry way?
It didn't influence. Honestly, I can speak for myself. It didn't influence because, you know, I had growing up, like I said, I grew up in a majority black neighborhood, but my friends I had white friends. I played baseball. I was one of two black people on the baseball team. So, I mean, I had a lot of white friends. And so, so passing it on to my daughter, she literally, I mean, she had multiracial friends growing up. I mean, and it was no problem for them to come over to our house.
That's all. So, Jason, what about yourself?
So for me, it was a situation where I wanted to make sure that I didn't want to freak my kids out and have them live in a sense of anxiety and fear, but I did want to prepare. So I just made sure, like, you know, like I said, we'll have a talk, but I didn't beat them over the head with it and try to remind them of it. You know, we had the conversation once, and then what we really talked about was character and being a good person. Yeah. Now, I'll tell you, there was things that I saw that my kids experienced that had nothing to do with the character of their heart, had a lot to do with the color of their skin. And I addressed it. Now, they didn't know I addressed it. You know, I would set up, like, my kids would come home and tell me, well, this is what happened to me at school and stuff like that. And I would ask them a little more details about it, right? And then I would maybe email the teachers like, hey, let me ask you a question, what's going on? And then you know, based on my experience, you know, we can see things our kids can't. And I'm like, yeah, this is something more than just kid acting out. And, you know, I know we'll call a meeting. I will sit down with the principal and the teacher and make the teacher understands, like, hey, look, this ain't, you know, we don't do this. You know, this ain't acceptable. I'm not going to allow this to happen. Now, I'm not going to send my kid in your classroom acting a fool with you, but I'm going to let you know that I know, and we ain't going to do this anymore.
Yeah. See, it's interesting because I think it's really interesting that what we have to do is with our kids, because we know how America has been to us. And for all practical purposes, we can live a moderately free life, but in teaching our kids as they grow up, Jason, I like the point you just touched on, that you taught them how to talk to people. Just by you handling your business the way you did, you taught them how to. In essence, you're teaching them how to deal with problems without acting out. I'll just say it like that. I won't say it like how most people say it. And I think that's really important, because that's something sometimes we forget to do as parents. We forget to teach our kids how to handle it. In other words, we forget to model the behavior we want our kids to model when they're no longer in our presence. So that's an awesome point. And I like that. But the point I wanted to get to, the reason I asked you about how you raise your kids is that it sounds like the three of us, well, Jason, it sounds like your kids kind of had an experience similar to yours. But Terry, correct me if I'm wrong, our kids had different experiences than what we had. Like,
yes,
like,
they had.
You know what I mean? Like the way I grew up, the way my kids grew up, it's totally different. When we talk about being colorblind, my kids weren't colorblind, but their friends were of all different races just because of the community they grew up in. Most of my friends in my neighborhood, like 99.8% of all my friends in my neighborhood were black, but when I was at school, I only really had two friends, to be honest with you, that I hung out with, and one was black, one was Hispanic. And then the people I associated while I was in school, because of the classes I took, they were predominantly white, or of different races, because, you know, most of my friends were in the neighborhood, they weren't taking the classes I take. So it's really funny. But I do want to come back to this point on another Friday evening, because y'all know at this time we've kind of reached our hour. I wish we could have gotten more in, because I tell you, I wanted to talk. I guess the next time when we talk, let's talk about education and stuff, because I think that's what's really important, even in this world that we live in, with the pandemic, with the police brutality, with racism on the rise. Still, education is important, and school is not the only place to educate our kids. So there's an importance that we have to put on education. And I tell you what, I got a lot of education in the streets, all right? You know, my daddy always say the game will be told and not sold, right? You know, and there's a lot of things I learned on the streets. I don't even look like I'm street savvy if you look at me, but I learned it on the street. So the next time we come back, I really want to touch on that a little bit. We'll spend an hour talking about education. You guys okay with that?
Mm-hmm.
All right, because I love you guys. All right, before we sign off, y'all know how we do. I want everybody to just have a wonderful weekend. Love God, love your family, love yourself, love your kids. Just love everybody. And you know what we say about this time? Find something you love. I need you to find it, embrace it, and chase it. And that is your relentless pursuit. This is Minister Sedric. I want to say thank you, and God bless everybody. Stay safe. This COVID-19 ain't no joke. Please wear your face coverings and stay away from big gatherings. Go home. Hang out with your family. And if you don't have no family at home, do like me. Go home, spend some time with yourself and God, okay? God bless you. Y'all have a wonderful weekend. I love you all. This is Minister Sedric, and thank you. Sister Kim, if you would, bring us a little music on.
Lord, I just want to say thank you for sending your son down to die for my sins. Even though I messed up and I got it wrong, you love me unconditionally. So here I am, all I have is you, a sinner saved by grace, but is that really true? Cause I still feel in love with what I used to do, and I don't feel a change, but my heart yearns for you. I don't feel complete, even when it's going right. When I'm missing you, Lord, please come into my life. Loving you the real test, not to love you to get blessed. And yes, I know that you the best. So here I am to worship, sacrifice my life so you can work it. How you see fit for your glory is worth it. Everything else can take a backseat. Running to your throne for your mercy like a track meet. Why you have to ask me? I don't understand. Without you, Lord, how can I be a real man? I ain't gon' try. I give you all of me, Lord, and ride till I die. Put my knees to the floor. Here I am to worship. Here I am to bow down. Here I am to say that you're my God. You're altogether lovely, altogether worthy, altogether wonderful to me. Here I am to worship, here I am to bow down, here I am to say that you're my God. You're altogether lovely, altogether worthy, altogether wonderful to me. So here I am, all I have is me. Still to this day, it feel make-believe. Why would you save me? I stoned you to death. I made you bleed on your cross to your last breath. Lord, was I really worth it? Cause apart from you, my life is all worthless. Ain't no point in working, cause it's all in vain. Without a real purpose, I really need to change. I don't know how, it's amazing that you even called me. Lord, I'm in RC, my struggles still haunt me. Random women every night, just to feel wanted. To feel like a man, cause my daddy didn't want me. And a past pain, addicted to Mary Jane. Father on cocaine, money down the drain. Baby mama drama, got me going insane. I know I've been redeemed, but I don't feel the change. Here I am to worship, here I am to bow down, here I am to say that you're my God. You're altogether lovely, altogether worthy, altogether wonderful to me. Here I am to worship, here I am to bow down, here I am to
homage to your father, that's my only option. After you ripped the veil and gave me the gospel, so I could see the truth, so I can walk with you. And that's the greatest thing that anyone can ever do. You really saved my life when I was worst at it, an addict on any level for pleasure, pain, and passion. I could never grasp it, cause it's never lasting. But Lord, you everlasting. I burn my flesh to ashes so I can walk with you. Your love is unconditional. So even though I struggle with my past, you still see me through. Sometimes I get it wrong, I fail plenty times, but I get back up and I ride. Your son lived and died for my eternal life, so now I'm still tight. God inside, you give me light. Now I'm saying I will fight. All my pain, hurt, and my struggles in my past life, Lord, you wipe away my tears every night.
Here I am to worship. Here I am to bow.